Oh my god, a video with Hillary Clinton. Apparently, there's some interesting stuff said here, so let's watch it.
To be able to go toe-to-toe on all of that. But I want to just underscore something I said. I personally believe that if he can, Trump is going to try to stay in office. I don't say that lightly, but I think all the signs are there. At all. I would not be, but I think we have to deal with the reality that we have. And President Trump has decided to go to Alaska to meet with Putin on our territory, in our state, on a military base. So I would be focused on trying to persuade him that he gains nothing by capitulating to Putin. I understand from everything I've read, he very much would like to receive the Nobel Peace Prize.
I'm going to put at 1.25 speed just to help you.
And honestly, if he could bring about the end to this terrible war where Putin is the aggressor, invading a neighbor country, trying to change the borders, if he could end it without putting Ukraine in a position where it had to concede its territory to the aggressor, had to, in a way, validate Putin's vision of greater Russia, but instead could really stand up to Putin, something we haven't seen, but maybe this is the opportunity, to make it clear that there must be a ceasefire, there will be no exchange of territory, and that over a period of time, Putin should be actually withdrawing from the territory he seized in order to demonstrate his good faith efforts, let us say, not to threaten European security. If we could pull that off, if President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize, because my goal here is to not allow capitulation to Putin, aided and abetted by the United States. I think that's a terrible, terrible precedent, and I think it would make our country less safe. I think it would reward Putin's aggression, and he will not stop. We know that. You know, you can dream, Jessica, you can dream, and I'm dreaming that for whatever combination of reasons, including the elusive Nobel Peace Prize, President Trump may actually stand up to Putin on behalf of not just Ukraine and its democracy and its very brave people.
The reason why she said that is because she knows that Donald Trump would never do that. He would never do that because that requires him not to be a little Russian bot from Putin.
But frankly, on behalf of our own security and interests.
The headlines, and we've been consuming a ton of media about this, and every single headline that I've read does not suggest that this is going to go well for the United States and that Putin is, licking his lips, essentially, at the prospect of being invited to our soil. And in the press briefing, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, said that we were honored to have him, which is definitely not the language I would be using, or I think maybe any other press secretary would be using about this. There's, the story about Special Envoy Witkoff misunderstanding what Putin was saying and coming back to the president and saying, oh, he wants to make concessions, when I don't think those words would ever be uttered by Vladimir Putin under any circumstances. And Donald Trump has really been trying to tamp down expectations since this was announced. So we went from, we're going to get a great deal, then it leaks out that he's frustrated that Putin tells him one thing and does another, which is the most obvious thing that Vladimir Putin does. And now this is, quote unquote, a learning exercise. Putting aside the idea of a Hillary Clinton nominating Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, what do you think is realistic to come out of Friday's meeting? And keeping in mind that Zelensky has come out this week and said that ceding territory in the Donbass is absolutely off the table, and he has never been given any security guarantee whatsoever. And he said, I'll leave office for tomorrow. I'll disappear from public life if you let us into NATO, if you make it clear that you're going to protect my people.
Well, the first thing I hope President Trump is either told or reminded of when he lands at our base in Alaska is that he is landing at the very base that has to send up fighter planes to watch and fend off Russian bombers that routinely harass our military assets, do overflights, engage in provocative behavior in the skies above Alaska. I hope he's reminded of that. He is not meeting with a friend. He is meeting.
General reminder, Hillary Clinton clears Donald Trump as a politician.
With an adversary, and an adversary who hopes to play him. And the best thing that could come out of this, frankly, is probably nothing agreed to, except a real strengthening of President Trump's understanding that Putin is not someone you can make a deal with and expect it to last. What I'm hoping is that on this listening exercise, which is now being called, President Trump will take off the blinders or the rose-colored glasses that he has worn in dealing with Putin in the past, and recognize that he's dealing with someone who wants to see the destruction of the United States and the Western alliance. We know that Russia's behind a cyber attack on our federal court system, going into filings, ferreting out information, some of it the most personal, private information and government information, that you could possibly find. If President Trump goes in with a better sense that he can be a peacemaker, okay, but not a Neville Chamberlain peacemaker, a Donald Trump tough peacemaker who holds Putin to account and protects the Ukrainian people, gives them the security that they need, including a path to NATO, and basically stands firm with our allies who have been extraordinarily supportive of President Trump during this first 6-7 months of his second term, and really make a stake like Churchill, make a stake against aggression, make a stake for freedom and democracy. Now, that would be extraordinary. And that's what I would like to see come out of this.
I would like that as well. And you mentioned the term liberal world order, and there's been a lot of conversation about the breakdown, right, of the post-World War II order. And we don't have the same kind of relationships with our allies, to put it in Clintonian terms. There's a lot of dumb power being used, not a lot of smart power. How far, I guess, you think this breakdown has been, if we would be welcomed back into the proverbial fold? It seems like from the NATO summit that is the case, that our European allies are just waiting for Donald Trump to turn around and say, actually, I would like to go back to more or less the way things were because we are better together than we are on our own. What are your thoughts on that?
Jessica, I actually was encouraged by the events of the last several months. First of all, the NATO commitment by individual member states to increase their defense spending is very welcome. It's something that prior administrations have certainly sought, and I think it's great that we are seeing these commitments that now have to be followed through on.
Yo, she is analyzing this very, very well. It's crazy that we just don't get this much anymore. Politicians giving like good analysis of the situation. She analyzed Putin, saying that you cannot negotiate with Putin. Putin will freeze the negotiation. Is completely correct. You can't capitulate to what he wants. And then she's talking about the NATO situation. And I've said this already before as well. I think I said it in one of the recent podcast episodes I did. I said that you could definitely look at the EU, NATO, them increasing their military spending, increasing their kind of own autonomy as a good thing. So they're not always just so reliant on the United States. So shout out.
The willingness of European countries to support Ukraine, and by doing so, buy American weapons in order to provide them to the Ukrainians. I think all of that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders.
She even gave a compliment to Trump, even though it hurts my soul every time I have to say, that's probably not a bad thing, but geez.
Leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged. I want to go back to something you said also, though. I think it's very unfortunate that President Trump only has one envoy for all the problems in the world. He sends Mr. Witkoff to deal with Putin. He sends him to deal with Iran. He sends him to deal with the Middle East, with Gaza. I mean, there is no way. I don't know the gentleman. Let's assume he's extraordinary, that he has all kinds of talents. But that level of incredible commitment is so intense. There is no way any person I know, and I've known a lot of our great diplomats, could do that alone, could do that, as the lead, and expect not to make mistakes.
Maybe a return of the living hostages.
The biggest opportunity that was missed was after the 12-day war with Iran. Israel established such dominance, intelligence dominance, military dominance, controlled the air over Iran, was able to destroy important infrastructure of their military industrial complex, had the addresses of some of the leaders in the nuclear program. And then the United States came in and added to that dominance with our unique capability. After that, it seemed to me Netanyahu should proclaim victory. He should have said,
take the W.
Take the W. I mean, look at what we have accomplished. Hamas, which you're 100% right, is literally a death cult. It's on its knees. Iran, we have clearly sent a message very forcefully that we will not allow it to become a nuclear weapons power. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to lay out a plan for ceasefire on a fast track, whether or not Hamas agrees, because they have no interest in agreeing, because the more the war goes on for them, the better it is, because that fits their narrative. I'm going to begin talking with our Arab neighbors about what we could do to put together some kind of security/redevelopment program. I'm going to demand that the Palestinian Authority reform itself in order to be a partner with Israel on doing anything about governing the day after Gaza. And you know what? That may cost me politically, because I have some people in my cabinet right now who do not agree with me. But if that's the case, I will go to the people in an election. I will go to the people with my plan for the future, which includes normalization with Saudi Arabia. It includes buttressing the Lebanese so that they can, keep Hezbollah down and out. It includes working to make sure we get the right regime in Syria. I mean, there is so much that could have come from the big W that was achieved over Iran. And it was the perfect moment. I also think if Netanyahu had done that, if his most extreme cabinet members had left him, I think he could have gone to the people of Israel and frankly gotten reelected. That wouldn't have been my choice, because I think Israel needs new leadership. And I've said that now for 2 years. But I believe that it could have very well sent a message to the people of Israel like, okay, we hired him to keep us secure. He's done a good job defending us against the horrific Hamas attack. He has set Iran back. He's gotten rid of Hezbollah. We see a change in Syria. Okay, let's see what he's got to offer for the future. And for the life of me, he took short-term, political positioning instead of long-term political and substantive benefits. And so now I think we're in a very difficult period. Everybody knows there's a mess.
That was a very astute analysis there. And it's something I didn't consider, because there was very impressive showcases from Israel. The fact that they were able to do everything they did in terms of their attacks on Iran to prevent them from having any nuclear capabilities. Like, despite everything they're doing, they did that quick, efficient. They handled their business. Then the United States fell in line. Like, yeah. And at the same time, there's also another thing that Israel is really establishing themselves as a power. We already knew this. Iran, does not want that smoke. Maybe you want to say that, but Israel does have like all the leverage of, okay, what do we want to do, right? Hamas keeps on trying to do these ceasefire deals, but none of them will happen because Israel is the one in control. If Israel put out a ceasefire deal, said this is what we're doing, and like worked around Hamas and just used the negotiating abilities of all these countries, they could change the narrative, going like, this is the deal that I want to put in place. All these countries agreed. Hamas is not agreeing to me. Hamas is not agreeing. They don't want peace. You could frame that like so easily. And it really just kind of fits what we've been saying in terms of like, what does Israel want? Is it about peace? Is it about saving the people's lives? Is it about saving hostages? Or is there a nefarious motive that is going on here? Because Israel does have all the leverage. They've proven their capabilities. So you really got to look at Netanyahu in the face and go like, are you doing what's in the best interest of all the parties involved? That's a very astute observation.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza. You can't deny what people are literally seeing. Even President Trump said, look, I see people starving. I see children starving. And so every day that goes by without addressing that in a very clear way by the Israelis undermines Israel's position in the region and globally in a way that I believe undercuts Israel's long-term security. So it's a vicious cycle that is going on, and it doesn't need to be that way. I also was a strong supporter of the move toward normalization with Saudi Arabia. I remember when I was secretary, Jessica, in literally my first meeting as secretary, I'd met him a number of times before with then Prime Minister and still Prime Minister Netanyahu. First thing he said was, how do we get to normalization with Saudi Arabia? Literally. And that was in 2009. So it's been a goal of his. I think it's now much farther away because of what is going on in Gaza and because of the Israelis' refusal to try to make the best efforts they can to deal with the humanitarian disaster. So I think there's a lot of moves that could have been relied on that would have put Israel in a stronger position, and even, whether I like it or not, Netanyahu in a stronger position to go forward.
Yeah, the Israeli people, certainly in the wake of October 7th and at various points, like you're saying, like the attack on Iran, his popularity surges. And people forget about the fact that they think that he's totally corrupt and he doesn't want, an independent judiciary, and that he's trying to stay out of jail.
Well, I think he's very bad for Israel. Don't get me wrong. I think that, he it's way past his sell date. And
it's a long time to be in office for anybody.
And he has made a series of political compromises that have really tied him up. He is a prisoner of the most extreme elements within the Israeli society, and therefore he is unable to get pragmatic again, which he used to be able to do. So my view on this is he has nothing to lose by trying to do the right thing. And the right thing is, let's look to alleviate the suffering in Gaza. Let's get organized to try to get the Arab countries, back on side to see what they can do in partnership with Israel to rebuild Gaza. Let's demand a reformed Palestinian Authority that would be a, somewhat credible partner. I'm not saying you rush toward anything, but you set a process in place and you begin to work on that. And let's not give any excuse for Hezbollah to get back on its feet. Let's not, prejudge what's going to go on in Syria because we're setting, the Syrians against Israel and the United States. Let's try to be smart about that. So I just feel like there's a lot of moves, but it's a chessboard of diplomacy that requires him to take some personal risks. And look, if I were the Israelis, I would say, we're gonna pause, everything about the trial with you. If you'll pause your attacks on the Attorney General and the judiciary, we have to deal with what is right in front of us, which is.
This is good. I think she's saying some very good things. I do have to head out, so I'm going to probably end this video early. Feel free to watch the full thing. I'm probably going to watch the rest of it on my own time. But, hey, man, Hillary Clinton proving she knows ball. What does the comment say? Clinton here, I'm struck by her ability to articulate more cohesive information in 10 minutes than we've heard from Stump. I'm disappointed the world has missed out on our intelligence. I could have listened to her indefinitely. So refreshing to hear smart, articulate people. Man, people are really sold on Hillary. If she wasn't so old, would she have another run on her? I don't know. We'll see. But that's all I got. I wish I could watch the rest of it, but I do got something to do. So y'all have a good one. Take care. Peace.